Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here at the Sec Days 2025. I'm glad to be talking about an exciting topic, which is how to implement lifecycle management for NHIs. And this is absolutely essential because we know that NHIs are exploding, and at the same time, so are their underlying challenges because they're highly distributed, we lack visibility onto them, and we often encounter them long-lived and overprivileged. But before diving too deep into this topic, I will briefly introduce myself. So I'm Loic Bruno. I've been working at GitGuardian for the past 3 years, and I'm currently product manager on our newly released products about NHI governance. I have the honor to be co-hosting this event with Apurva, and we'll also have Cameron, who will actually do most of the talking. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. My name is Apurva Dave. I'm the CMO at Aembit. If you're not familiar with Aembit, Aembit does identity and access management for workloads and non-human identities, providing you an ability to get away from secrets and instead provide identity and access management. And I've been at Aembit for a long time. I swear I had no gray hair before I came to Aembit, and based in the Bay Area, and kind of love being one of the humans behind non-human identity. Cameron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. Hello, everybody. My name is Cameron. I lead the Global Security Analytics team at Snowflake, reporting into our CISO. I've been here for almost 7 years and really had the opportunity to kind of grow with the company and evolve. And really, my role is centered around data, providing data services, dashboards, metrics, applications to the security organization. And I have the pleasure of being a customer to both GitGuardian and Aembit here, and to solve really big problems and do it in a very delightful manner to make productivity better, but also things more secure. And so I'm just really excited to be here to speak about that with all of you, and hopefully you can learn something from this presentation and take inspiration from some of what we've done. So very, very much looking forward to getting into it with you.
Thank you very much. Without further ado, let's dive deep into the core of the topic. Most of us have already seen the alarming data that came out from the state of secret sprawl, and in particular, the fact that around 70% of the secrets that were leaked in 2022 are still valid today. We know also that tools like Copilot are just amplifying the problem, and that's something that's plaguing the entire industry. We have secrets that are appearing kind of everywhere, from the code to any collaboration tools or productivity tools and more. So my question here for you, Cameron, is for Snowflake, how secret sprawl did manifested itself, and most of all, how did you realize that this was an entire topic that you needed to address?
Yes. No, this is spot on. And really, when I think about secret sprawl, I go back a few steps, right? I would say the number of non-human identities that exist in general for most enterprises, but certainly at Snowflake, they far outnumber the number of human identities that exist. And so if you take those NHIs and you multiply them by the number of applications in a given environment, and so, at a given environment in an enterprise level company, there might be 300 to 400 level or amount of SaaS apps there. So if you take that and multiply by the number of non-human identities that are there, each of which have their own, potentially secrets that are associated to them, that's really like a massive amount right there. And it's really exploding. And that manifests itself not just in, code, but also in all of these collaboration tools that you just mentioned. So it's really the way that you work, whether it's Slack or Jira or Confluence, like these secrets can also be in those environments. And oftentimes when organizations look to solve this problem, which I know we're going to go into detail about in a bit, but they may try to have multiple vaults in their environment to store these secrets. And then you have what's called, vault sprawl. And that really treats the symptoms and not really the root cause. And the reality is that even if you have a vault, these secrets can still exist in these tools in Slack and other environments in code. And so it doesn't necessarily reduce your exposure to risk. And so that's kind of how I think about the problem. And its scale is a little bit scary. And I would say, we all know with the emphasis of AI, how that problem can also become bigger, as you just mentioned, right? So whether that's co-pilots or just in general developer productivity, right, where they're using AI tools, they can ship code much faster, which we love as organizations, right? And so when that happens, we can also see secrets start being exposed at a more accelerated rate that kind of is coinciding or correlated, I should say, with the actual code being shipped that way. And so I think that's a good and bad thing, right? We want developers to be more productive and ship code faster and use these tools, but it also means that these secrets can sprawl even faster.
Cam, first of all, before I have a question based on this, but I have to say, I think you just coined a new term. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about vault sprawl before. I've heard identity sprawl, I've heard secret sprawl, I've never heard vault sprawl. That's super interesting. You and I are going to have a conversation about that after this. But I want to build on something you just brought up there, which is like you saw this scale issue start to come up around non-human identities, and that it suggests a new kind of beast around this, how it drove the secrets problem. But could you walk through a little bit more about how you define this problem at Snowflake and thinking about those developer pain points? Like you said, we all we want them to be able to ship code faster. And this doesn't feel like one of the common developer pain points people talk about, but clearly something you isolated.
Definitely. So when I think about the problem, going back a few steps there, but when I think about the problem, it really manifests itself in multiple ways, right? So one, secrets, being leaked can lead to compromise, right? We know that, and that's like the security risk, the incidents that come about, and all the badness that follows there, right? In terms of data exfiltration or, knock on wood, threat actors getting, access to those and all the badness that follows. So that's one angle of like what the problem can manifest itself into. And then the other angles are compliance requirements, governance around this, and the, us having to kind of put things into place in this manner. And then the last problem, and the one that's underserved to your point, Apurva, is that DevOps team, the developers, right? And they kind of they're underrepresented in this, right? They're the thankless heroes that have to go and actually do the tireless activities of rotating these secrets over and over and over and over again, right? And so that's not a fun task to do, and it always feels like they're behind. Their job is not generally easy, right? They're always kind of firefighting and really, it's a thankless job in general. And on top of that, compliance and security is coming to them and saying, on top of everything else you have to do, you also have to, rotate these secrets. And so I think that, thinking about ways to go secretless, where possible is really kind of making that more of a delightful experience for these DevOps teams. All other folks, other personas that I mentioned will also benefit from that. And I think the reality is you have to kind of have multiple solutions to kind of address this problem, right? Where you can go secretless, that's great. I think that doesn't mean you should excuse yourself from scanning for secrets that are being leaked still. You need to do both. It's really an and story there. So yeah, that's kind of how I think about that. Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting targeting this DevOps persona. I know that we talked also in the past about how you address the human identity process and how did you manage those kind of identities with MFA, with FIDO, which was great for your users, and that is actually quite exceptional for our field, actually. And my question here is, how did your experience with the human identity influence your expectations for the NHI management?
Yeah, so that was really, the first problem that we looked to solve. To your point, it's where we really started in the identity journey, and there was a lot of learnings that came from that, and how we use MFA and FIDO to really solve the human IAM problem it made the lives of all of our employees better. And that was somewhat of an unexpected outcome, as the slide mentions here. That wasn't necessarily our goal. Our goal was to make things more secure. But anytime in security that you can both make somebody's life better and also make it more secure, you're really enabling the business in that manner. And those are the types of projects I love to be involved in, because I don't believe that security and user experience have to be on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? You can find solutions that really solve for both. And in general, in security, many people say the role of the security in a business isn't just to make things more secure; it's to enable the business more securely, right? And that's really what we were trying to do with managing human identities. And the reality was, once that was solved, what remained was NHIs, right? A lot of the noise went away in terms of tickets and requests to rotate passwords or change passwords or whatever it was that came from our users. Then we saw this, like, the big ugly hairy problem was really NHIs, and we wanted to use similar strategies to solve for that, but we couldn't leverage MFA for NHIs, right? Obviously, so that wasn't an option for us, but we wanted to mimic that as much as possible. And I think that's some of the learnings that we had. We wanted to also make it a delightful experience for the personas that are involved here, which, as we mentioned, very much was the DevOps teams. Yeah.
So let's keep going down that path. I mean, I love this idea of enabling the business more securely. I think that if we thought about every security project that way, we'd have a pretty different relationship between security teams and the downstream teams in the organization that they face. Maybe you could build on that and talk about what alternatives you thought about leveraging to solve this problem, whether they were products out on the market. Obviously, you ended up with a couple, so there's kind of like a path there to discuss. You probably thought about what you could build internally or what processes you need differently. But did you, I think some of the key questions are, what did you look at as patterns or anti-patterns? What was your must-have checklist? And how did that come together in a real strategy that you could, confidently convey to your leadership?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think as we kind of look to address this problem, one of the first things that we even spoke about earlier today was secret managers, right? And vault sprawl, which we will speak about after this as well. And this was really an anti-pattern for us because, like I mentioned, it kind of treated the symptoms and not the root cause, right? You still had to rotate secrets and you had multiple vaults out there and you're not really managing access. So yes, like it might help make the problem incrementally better, but it wasn't going to be the end all be all solution for us in that manner. The other solution that we looked at was, more cloud infra specific. And for us, that was too fragmented, right? We have a lot of SaaS apps. We have upwards of 200, 300 SaaS applications at Snowflake. And I think many enterprises probably have a similar footprint. And so cloud provided infra was just going to be too fragmented for us in that manner. And then finally, governance tools. This for us, it was a approach that we liked, and I think that we have implemented, but it wasn't going to be done by itself. It wasn't going to be the sole solution there. And that's when I mentioned the and story. The solution that we eventually landed upon was going to be GitGuardian to really scan for secrets being leaked, but also Aembit to allow us to go secretless itself and remove the problem where possible. And I think it was the combination of these solutions that we really gravitated towards. And I think that's been the strategy. It's going to be kind of meet the business where they are, implement Aembit where it makes sense, and then continuously keep scanning for badness. And ideally, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but you should kind of see the problem getting better, right? And we're a very data-driven company at Snowflake, right? We have data on all of these things, and we're going to talk a little bit about metrics to kind of show how this got better. But I think we really saw the effects of that, which was a great signal to us.
Yeah, Cameron, that's perfectly clear why you ruled out those, let's call them traditional options, and then you landed on GitGuardian and Aembit to solve this problem. So can you elaborate a bit more on how those two products address the pain points of both secret sprawl and the NHI management, and also how it looks like for your handling of machine identities, and most of all, for the teams that are managing them?
Yeah, definitely. I really think of it as a shift left strategy, right? So address the problem at the root cause, wherever that's most relevant, right? So for us, having GitGuardian, for example, integrated with our code base, it was a matter of having these pre-receive hooks that allowed us to potentially not merge PRs if secrets were detected. And so that was a way to kind of get ahead of the problem pretty well. And still kind of like look for secrets and other tools, other collaboration tools that way. So for us, it was you make things easier, shift left, reduce the amount of work that had to be done in remediation, in detection. And then same thing with Aembit, right? If you went secretless, there was nothing to be leaked anymore, right? The personas of DevOps were served in that manner and did not have to continue to rotate things and have to do that. So a lot of time was saved for all of these different parties. And it really also helped our audit story, with working with internal auditors and external auditors to say that, yes, we have these solutions in place. So the actual work that goes into place to prove out that we've done what we say we're doing is going to be less as well. So that's kind of the implementation strategy and what it kind of has helped us do. And I think shift left is really the key term for us in that way. At the same time, going secretless to actually reduce the surface area of risk that's actually out there.
I think this is really cool. It would be interesting to also hear the Aembit or IAM side for you in terms of business benefits. I think what's interesting is that, frankly, most of the audience will not have heard here about doing identity and access management across workloads and AI agents. When you found us a couple of years ago, we were so new we didn't necessarily even know what it would be called in the market, right? And you kind of had this wish list of what you wanted, but as far as you knew, the product didn't exist. So talk to me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say the way that I think a little bit about Aembit is that it's Octa for NHIs, right? It's allowing us to go secretless and basically have no more static credentials for these workload identities that are looking to authenticate to whatever source or whatever destination that they're going to. And so when we look to roll this out at Snowflake, we are the security team, as I mentioned, right? I lead security analytics, and as a result, we have a number of tools that are in our environment that are in our control to use, right? And so we had key software that we identified. One, Snowhouse, which is our internal implementation of Snowflake that we leverage throughout the organization. All business units from marketing to HR to finance to security are using Snowhouse in different capacities. We in security are also leveraging it as a security data lake, and all of our tools are connected there. And so in order to enable that connection to ingest that data, we're using non-human identity service accounts to do so. And so our strategy was, let's really apply Aembit to those tools, see how it works, and see what the benefit is. And it really allowed us to go secretless. We no longer needed to maintain username and passwords and secrets for these identities. And that made our internal DevOps team's life easier, right? It saved the amount of time that they had to spend managing this and doing that like thankless work that nobody likes to do, that's very manual to do. And it worked really well for us. And at that point, we kind of started evangelizing to the rest of the organization saying, don't you want to make your life easier, your DevOps teams easier? Look at how we've benefited from this. We've saved 10 hours a day on average, really, with this automation. Don't you want to have that same outcome, right? I'm actually can put my money where my mouth is and say that I've tried this. I'm not trying to sell you a solution that I myself won't use. If it's good enough for me, it can also be, good for you. So that was a very organic growth for us. And eventually our IT team also is leveraging Aembit, and they have a lot more applications to do so. So you can think about the benefit really being multiplied across the number of apps that they have in their control and their environment. So it was a very organic growth, and going secretless in that manner, really helped us.
That's great. And it's cool to see how, we can go from a system of, just finding problems, then going to finding them in a productive way, like you're doing with GitGuardian, where it's actually helping your developers be more productive. And then bringing something like Aembit into the flow to eliminate the problem and eliminate that part of their job, essentially, in a good way, right? Take away this overhead tax of having to do this thing you don't want to do to ship features you care about shipping, right? Everybody needs auth, but nobody wants to build it. Like, why do you want to build it? Unless you work at a company like Aembit, why are you building auth at all, right? Okay, so this was really cool. You really had this journey over the past couple of years, and had to assemble a portfolio of tools and relationships to help you do it. I kind of have a two-phased question here. I hope that's okay. But first, I would love you to summarize the lessons that you took away from these projects, so that for anybody listening who's thinking and embarking on this, they can kind of learn from your mistakes, if you will, and what worked. Once you've talked through that, your challenges and the lessons, I would love to hear about what's next here. Like, where do you think this technology goes? I think is another thing probably on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. No, great question. I do appreciate the two-part, and I do love talking about this. So as I kind of mentioned, or maybe I might have alluded to this, but I'm going to touch on it more now, which is, really key lesson number 2, which is what I'll start with, a little bit out of order here. But in security, you own very little, right? And in this instance, security doesn't own all of those enterprise tools that IT and engineering may be implementing for their workflows and et cetera, right? We don't own those, yet we are responsible for the security of them, right? And we want to encourage these teams to adopt the best security practices to really harden their environment, because we own that risk ultimately. We have to sign off on that risk. And when I say we, it's really our CISO that's gonna really own that. And so that's difficult to do, right? And a way that we've kind of found can be successful, a lesson that we've learned, is if we can be that initial customer to adopt these tools, and see what works, see what doesn't work, give feedback, if they're can do something different that will work for us. We really become customer zero in that way for our organization, right? We work out the kinks, we build those relationships, and then eventually when we want to go to the business owners, right, the IT teams, engineering teams, whoever they may be, we can actually say, look, we're not looking to sell you on a solution. We're not, salespeople in that manner. We're just practitioners that have adopted technology that really helps solve big problems for us. And we want to make your life better too. So that really comes into item number 1, right? Any solution that we can do to enable the business more securely, right? Thinking about both security, but also user experience is really what's going to be most successful, right? And that's where I want to spend my most time, is enabling the business, not making things, just super secure, right? I mean, if that comes at a cost, then it's not really enabling the business. And then what are we really here for, right? So doing it this way, right? Bringing the business and technology together, thinking about the benefits that it can have for different personas and different BUs, is really a solution that I think many people can get behind. Many different folks in the organization, they can justify bringing these tools on, and they're bringing it on not for any selfish reasons, right, but for the right reasons in that manner. So I think those are some of the challenges in security in general, and they really were manifesting themselves in this identity journey a lot. And so these are some of the lessons we've learned, and I hope it's helpful to others on the call of how they can tackle general security problems, but for sure also in the identity landscape with regards to secrets management.
Before you go on, I just think it's really interesting, and maybe you have additional comments on this, but it seems to me like with this problem in particular, there were a lot of stakeholders.
Yes.
Right? Because it's not just security making things more secure. You talk about the internal IT teams, you've talked about developers, we've talked about DevOps and DevSecOps. I almost think this is like a perfect storm type project where it tested your mettle in building the relationships and the working team across those groups. Do I have this right, or kind of am I off base here in terms of what I'm describing?
No, that's completely accurate. There are a lot of stakeholders in this, in the identity landscape. And for us, identity is kind of unique in the way that there isn't a single owner of the identity program at Snowflake, right? And I think many organizations are similar. We really have like a virtual team, a council that consists of different folks from compliance, corporate security, IT, and product security as well, that are all there working together to figure out solutions, right? Because your stakeholders, the business teams, right, they're going to be very much vocal about different problems that may exist. And so you want to make sure that you're doing right by them. And it's everyone has a different motivation in a way, but I think when we look at it holistically, we have to find solutions that can serve all of those goals. So yeah, it's challenging in that manner, right? It's very cross-functional across the organization.
All right, sorry for that distraction. I'm curious what's next. Let's hear from like what do you do now that you put these things in place? Is this kind of done? Do you move on to other issues, or just have a cocktail, or are there kind of other things you want to do here?
No, I think I think security, it never sleeps, and it's always going to be a journey that we try to get better in. And I think identity is going to be very similar. When I think about what's next, I think we have within security in general a lot of tools that give us telemetry on different health of different systems, and we have a lot of logs and insights into what might be working well. We have a very robust threat detection and incident response team that's working. And so when I think about some of these solutions, it's what I'm really kind of motivated by is how can I build in some of that context and that security awareness to some of the solutions. So conditional access, for example, that can be enabled through tools like Aembit is kind of where my mind goes next. And then kind of like also interlinking the workflows of incident response and threat detection there with telemetry such that comes from GitGuardian. So I think we have all the right tools. It's a matter of like how to stitch them together in a way that makes things very efficient and enriched. That I think about. And I think a lot of that can be enabled through, having your data in one place, such as Snowflake. It kind of allows you to build on top of it. As you mentioned, Apurva, we don't want to be in the business of necessarily building identity tools, right? That's not our expertise. We want to leverage third-party tools that have solved that. You're much smarter than we are in that manner, and you're dedicated to that. But for us, it's a matter of like stitching them together in a way that really kind of can become bigger than its individual parts. So conditional access is one area that I think a lot about, and kind of just continuing to really roll out these solutions across the enterprise, right? We kind of have different phases associated to that, and there's a roadmap of like starting small. We started with security. We've now gone to a number of apps in IT, and kind of organically growing from there to do so. Yeah.
I would love to dig deeper into this one. This was very insightful. Thank you. But sadly, it's already time for us to close this topic. So we'll look at the chat to go over every unanswered question that we might find. And of course, we'll stay available if you have any other question. But just to wrap it up, we've seen that the scale and speeds of the NHI growth demands requires a new mindset and tool sets. So if we provide both automation and holistic visibility to NHIs, we are going to be able to not only regain control, but also start building a future-proof security strategy for NHI. So thank you for joining us in shaping the next chapter in identity management together. thank you so much, Apurva and Cameron, for your expertise and wisdom. And please stay tuned for the next sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.